Welcome to Just One Q. I'm Dr. Melissa Horne, a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate. In this podcast, I chat with industry experts and thought leaders about the latest trends related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Each episode, I ask just one question tied to current events. The goal is to leave you with the tools that you need to drive change in your own life, both personally and professionally. Now, I often have folks reach out to me asking how they can better incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion practices into their hiring and recruitment processes. And of course, this is a really good and important first step. But often when I dig deeper, these folks haven't really thought much about DEI beyond hiring and meeting their target diversity goals. And to be honest, many aren't sure exactly how to integrate DEI into their talent management strategy. Today, though, I'm excited because my guest is a talent and employment strategist whose focus is not only on hiring diverse candidates, but also supporting organizations with integrating DEI practices into their talent management strategy. So for today's question, I'm asking, how can companies integrate and maintain DEI in their promotion structures? And to answer today's question, I'm excited because I'm joined by Florence Idowu. Florence, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
So a little bit about Florence. Florence is an independent employment strategist and the founder of Bavarde Talent Solutions. Florence works with organizations helping to build and train their team. Florence transitioned into talent management from academia after her first e-learning startup firm, where she trained professionals on soft skills management and consulted with organizations on skills development programs focusing on upskilling and reskilling. Florence also provides personalized services and develops DEI programs and initiatives for organizations ready to invest in DEI programs. Florence, I know that you've got a lot to say about this topic, so I want to get into it. What does it mean when we say that companies need to integrate and maintain DEI in their promotion structures?
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. One thing that I always tell organizations that diversity, when we're talking about D&I, it's more than recruitment. As a talent acquisition consultant or strategist, talent strategist, I actually like to call myself more of a talent strategist because it has to do more of action than just giving advice and being an advisor to organizations. So it's moving from the operational now to the strategy where we can become a business partners with organization. So to answer your question, I would say diversity has always been looked into from the high of recruitment. We want diverse candidates. We want diversity in our talent pool. Let's build a diversity dashboard. Let's do this. Let's get them to interview with us. Let's focus on this group. Let's focus on the underrepresented. But after that, what next? What next? So those are the questions that I've begun to ask organizations and sometimes even ask myself, that as a talent acquisition consultant or a talent strategist, after I let my own employees or my client employees, get them in the door, get them into the organization, what's going to be their career pathway? What will be the path to take after that? What other doors we open after they step their feet into this organization? So that is why I have always been advocating that diversity is not just about getting the Black, the people of color, the Asian, the Latinos. No, it's about creating a sustainable programs that would retain this talent even down to leadership positions. So like I do have in my notes, I'm more of a data person. Like I just like data, looking to reports, looking to trends, because that's the only way we can move forward and know what trend we need to tackle. I was looking into this McKinsey report recently, and it was talking about why gender diversity actually brings more revenue, brings more financial bliss to business, unlike their male counterparts. And I was like, organizations need to begin to shift, need to be the shift of mentality, a shift of outlook on how diversity is being looked into. So today, we'll be talking more about the integration, how we can integrate diversity into promotion structure, because promotion is also like another aspect of hiring. It's just that it has to do with internal talent internal. So it's more of talent management, unlike talent acquisition. Okay, so one of the things that I just need to talk about is, before we go into integrations, I try to start from promoting diversity, start looking into how we can promote diversity in promotion structure before we look into incorporating and integrating diversity in promotion structure, and then we look into maintenance. So the very first thing that I would like to mention is that organization need to now begin to incorporate diversity policies, create policies that actually support diversity. Like for instance, they have, even though I know they do this, organizations do this, they have this accessibility for disabilities in the office, which is a very good policy to have. Then they also can incorporate, like have diversity friendly policies, for instance, allow time off for religious workers. So if we're going to look into religious worker, for instance, now, in America, for instance, there are quite a number of religions. There's some religion that you don't even know exist. A number different name. A team member comes to me as a manager and say, "Oh, Florence, I do need this time off because my family is going to host this event, or we have this religion holiday or activity coming in." It now comes down to the manager to be able to say that, "Oh, yes, it's approved. Oh, can I know more?" But at that point, even if organizations are beginning to say, yes, it's approved, but they do not concern, or they are not concerned about why. Let me know about your religion. Well, this is different. This is different from like, for instance, most American, we only have this Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas and others jolly. But what if an Indian or comes to me and say they have this holiday, and then I'm always very curious.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about it. Let me learn about your culture. Let me learn about your tribe. Even if I'm not going to convert to being Hindu or being being that their religious person, but it's very good when the employee says that you're interested in their own personal life, their own culture, their own tribe. Is a very good thing. So looking into organization or diversity policy, for instance, now, it goes beyond just having these policies in place. It goes beyond communicating the inclusion that we all clamor for in the policy. Another thing that I talk about when it comes to promoting diversity in organizations, promotion structure, is how would I put this? Employee development system. Looking at employee development, I remember one of our conversations that we had when we were talking about dialectics and how we can give this program to organizations and they can use it as an e-learning just to curb their biases and stuff like that. But when I'm looking at employee development system now, in terms of e-learning programs or what we do call the learning management system, I would say that even organization can allow equal access. In most organizations nowadays, we have a different courses. We have different courses for managers. We have different courses for non-managers. We have different courses for leadership and non-leadership. But what is it going to hurt if an organization actually makes this accessible to all?
That'd be interesting. Yeah. What
Definitely
would happen?
no, nothing.
No,
I don't think
absolutely.
anything.
No,
Actually,
they
I
don't
don't.
make it. They don't make it. No, they section off, or they silo the leaders with the leadership training, and the non-leaders get their own training as well.
Yeah, but what is it going to hurt if it is accessible to all?
Well, we would have to sharing the power structure a little bit then if we made it accessible to all.
Yes, but actually it's not going to hurt, because even if a non-manager gets access to managers' courses or lessons or sessions, all it's going to do is going to add additional skills to them. That is why one thing about organization is when you get it right in the recruitment aspect, your recruitment process, you hire the right talent for your organization. One of the things the Bavarde Talent Solutions clamoring for is getting candidates for not just the role fit, but also for the culture fit, and which we know we've tested it, and it has always worked for us. It helps in retention. So if organization actually got it right from the recruitment aspect, and now they're allowing their own employees to grow, build new skills, upskill, reskill, transition from one department to another, and they have this programs, they have these lessons accessible to all it's going to do is give them additional skill sets.
I think that was a really interesting point that you made there about, so, one, there's preparing your organization to be more inclusive so that when you do have diverse hires coming in, that it's a welcoming environment. But then also taking it a step beyond and actually thinking about how can you incorporate equitable practices into helping staff upskill, reskill, acquire new skills. So, rather than just, if you've got training that's out there, that it's not just for leaders, not just for staff and employee, but having that leadership, having those leadership courses available for employees who want to learn and who want to take them. That's a really interesting idea, one that I hadn't even thought about, as sort of being a barrier, right? Not having access to certain training opportunities, and why gate that, right? Like your question asked, like, what happens if employees do want to take leadership training? It probably will make them better employees, but then also would have that training when opportunities for advancement come.
Exactly. So instead of now having to now redirect them, like, okay, this is going to be the training that is for your own level, and this is the training that is not for your own level, which any curious employee will be like, okay. So now, away from that, the other things that I just do to tell people, to tell my clients is, when you have your diversity programs highlighted, now it's time to strategize. That is exactly the point of this program today. We're looking into how to incorporate, how to integrate this diversity strategy that you've made, the team. We do have different teams, the culture, the EGR, different names. Now they've come together, they've put a strategy together. So now how can we incorporate the strategy now in the promotion structure? So one thing that is very important is, of course, the diversity committee, because these are the people that are going to implement the strategy. So the diversity committee, which I do advise my clients to get, is someone from everywhere. From every team, from every department, make sure there's a representation. From every gender, from every minority group, just from every group, make sure there is going to be a representation, because that way they'll be able to stand for their own affinity group, for instance, or stand for their own minority group. And instead of it being focused on just one side, they'll be able to look into various perspectives, various ideas, and bring together, which is very good for creativity. Thoughts-provoking session, they'll be able to have that. So after that, there's something I do call the fair leader movement.
Okay.
The fair leader movement model, it's something that we use, which is very simple, but it has to do with the transparency and fairness. So for looking into transparency and fairness, talking about fairness of opportunity, there are so many instances whereby we're scenarios where organizations are ready to promote the male counterpart instead of the female counterpart, and they are both qualified. And one of the ways that this biases, when we're talking about biases, to set in, is because now the manager is tasked to choose one. So choose one person to be promoted, choose one person to be encouraged to apply for the next job in the ladder. So when we talk about the fair ladder movement, is everyone has to move accordingly, of course, but why don't you present more ladders?
Right.
So now, if there's a sport that allows for just one opening, why don't you allow the whole team that is qualified to apply? So those are the questions that I task with leaders, with leadership, when we have this conversation about diversity strategies, who to promote, who not to promote. Biases, definitely, everyone has bias. The only way is, what do you do to be able to eliminate or diminish these biases to some extent? Maybe not totally, but to some extent, because biases also help us grow, help us to make certain decisions which comes out to be right. But you also have to be able to give opportunity to everyone accordingly. That is where fairness comes in. That is where transparency of the process comes in. So even if out of 10 which applied from the same team, one is going to be choosing, the team understands why that person is choosing, why is it well deserved. But if the manager just comes in and say, hello, Kate, you've been choosing to take a look at this program, take a look at this new opening, why don't you, we think you'll do better. Then every other member of the team, which puts almost equal effort or are very much involved in other projects which they've seen themselves also qualified for this program or for this opportunity, begin to feel neglected, they feel discouraged and unqualified, even before the system makes them unqualified. They already termed themselves unqualified, and they begin to look elsewhere.
Great teams fuel great business. In the office, on the road, in the field, and around the world, your people are working together to make it happen, to make something new, to do something better, to delight customers again and again. At Dialectic, we believe that even the best teams can get better. Dialectic is a learning company obsessed with helping teams reach their potential. Using person-centered, empathetic design and social science research methods, we build digital and in-person training that helps your people build habits that unlock enthusiastic collaboration and true belonging. For example, Learning Snippets is a diversity, equity, and inclusion microlearning program that helps your people build inclusive habits in 3 minutes or less. Your team can practice living your organization's values with off-the-shelf programs like inclusive leadership, gender identity, or offsetting racial bias. Or let Dialectic design a solution tailored to your needs, from digital transformation and difficult conversations to disaster preparedness or design thinking. Learn more about how Dialectic could help unlock your team's potential at dialectic.solutions. And if you want to see how Learning Snippets puts DEI concepts into action, you'll find the link in the show notes. And now back to the show. So what kind of feedback do you get from leaders when you sort of present them these opportunities, or when you present the idea of, first opening up training for all employees, regardless of whether they're in a leadership role or not, and also opening up these other sort of growth opportunities? What kind do you get pushback, or?
Of course you get pushback. Of course you get pushback. I think there was a scenario that I want to talk about when a leader, an organization, the leadership of an organization actually told me that they wanted, they were asking questions. Like, we had this thought-provoking session, and they said, we'd like to have more diversity in the senior level position. And what I did was I first took a step back, relaxed, and began to count how many males we had in the room. Mm-hmm. We had 9 white men in the room and just 2 white women. And I was the only Black among them. You could imagine how, if not because I was the supplier, it would have been very, very frustrating, because I won't be able to voice out. I won't be able to voice out my own opinion. I won't be able to have any meaningful conversation. But as the supplier, I had to, of course, put on my I will say put on my own vest of, no, nothing shall touch me. I'm free. Yeah. So when they told me that they would like to have more diversity in this senior level position, like I said, I had to count. Now we are having around 80% of men and 20% of women. And out of the 20% of women, the other woman was the executive assistant. Right. And these are all C-suite level leaders. So what I just told them is, if we're going to start, we have to start from the room. We have to look in what diversity do we have in this room. We only have a woman, actually, and executive assistant. What do you do to, what are we going to do to resolve this issue? We took a look down to the directorate cadre. And in directorate cadre, I can say they only have maybe around 35% of diversity. And out of the 35% of diversity, we're looking into more of a whites, females, unlike the people of color, the Asians, the Latino, disabled, or even the veterans. There was even this organization that they did not even have any of all this. They only have the white men and the white women, and maybe just 1 or 2 people of color. So the only way they can do it is because if organizations begin to look into their succession plans, which is very important for the growth of the organization, they need to look in, after we leave the position, after we leave this spot in the ladder, who comes up next? But most organizations, if they look down the ladder, they will see the next people that are coming is the same as them. Yep. Because those are the people that they have trained. That's right. So now, who are they? Who is going to be the next person or the next people or batch of people to train? So if organizations begin to look into their succession plans, mentoring programs, career pathways that they have designed, they'll be able to solve this issue. That is why I always bring up training as the first aspect of diversity. So training now, not training in regards to hiring managers, eliminating of unconscious biases in both the hiring process or promotion, because it's very much bias in promotion. But we also need to look in, after these people leave this position and the next people are to come up to this position, who are the next persons to come? So if they do not if they did not start with diversity recruitment, of course, we cannot take away that from the table. But
Right.
if they did not start from that and allow more diversity, more beauty, I actually like to call diversity beauty because
Mhm.
it comes with a mix of everything into the system, we're still going to have the same issue. 10 years, 15 years, 50 years from now, we'll still be talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting is often people are looking at how do we move people up, but I love the idea that you mentioned, like, let's look down the ladder. And if everyone down the ladder looks the same as us, then we're not going to be able to solve the problem of more diversity in the leadership. And I really like the idea of focusing on growing your talent within and providing opportunities for employees to move up that ladder. But that means that leaders have to look down and create those opportunities, create the equitable access that you were talking about for employees to access that training and upskill so that they can actually move up in within the organization.
Exactly. So another thing is that I always want to talk about is the pay equity.
Oh, no, no one likes to talk about pay equity. Florence, you're going to ruffle feathers. All right, let's talk about pay equity.
So for pay equity, it's a very big issue, a very big challenge. We have different ratio to use and different ratio to focus on, and that is very sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sad. In organizations today, pay is still a secret
Yes.
entity.
Well, even looking at job descriptions, right?
Thank you. I was about to go there. Starting from the job description, we have job posting and there is no transparency in pay. So now you expect people to just come in and bargain. As a recruiter now, for instance, if I'm going to go for an interview, let's assume I want to be interviewed for a position, and it gets down to the point where they say, what is your expected salary? One thing I do tell the recruiter is, what is your budget? What's your budget?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, asking especially members of equity deserving groups, what their expected salary is. Traditionally, folks have undervalued themselves and without knowing, what the budget is, often lowball themselves. And we start, within the organization off on, earning much less than some of their peers who are doing the same job because within the because as you mentioned, they ask what's your expected salary versus what's your expected budget. We should put this in the show notes. There's some data for here in Canada anyway on the salary differentials for women of color between their male counterparts, and like basically it's $1 million over the career of a woman compared to her male counterparts. And then it becomes, obviously, that disparity becomes much larger when we take into account women of color, women of lower socioeconomic status. So yeah, it's a huge, huge issue. I mean, I was a bit cheeky before, but it costs people a ton of money, and it maintains inequity and injustice within workplaces and within our communities and society as a whole. So it's a really important issue. But you're the expert on this, so I'll let you chat a bit more about it. But
there was an issue going on sometimes. I think that would be like 2-3 years ago, which I was involved about this HR that actually resigned from our position. And when she resigned, she printed out a document. Asked me what document. The document was everyone in the organization, from the CEO to the last person in the organization's pay, and left it on the printer tray. Oh, it caused a lot of drama. A whole lot of drama, because everyone began to see the differences in their pay, and we do the same job. We have the same job description, position description, but the pay difference is just, the margin is just too much.
So incorporating pay equity within your organization, promotion strategy and structure is, I mean, in just practices is critical if you're going to be serious about sort of retaining, members of equity deserving groups.
Exactly. One thing I always start with my candidates, because in Bavarde Talent Solutions, apart from working with organizations, we also work directly with candidates. We help diverse candidates place them to their dream jobs. So we always try to make sure that you're interested in these. At least give us your top 3, and would work our best to get you to that door. So one thing I do tell the candidates is that you have to be confident about your skills. Because even if you're a diverse candidate and you're coming from a different background, but you're still doing the same thing, doesn't make you less qualified than someone that has been, for instance, in America, studied in America for quite a number of time. I'm also an immigrant, so I do know about the discrimination that comes in when we're talking about education background. But now back to pay. One thing I do tell candidates now, for instance, is even if you're tasked with, okay, what is your expected salary? What is your salary expectation? The very first question you want to know with the recruiter is, what is the budget? Of course, a recruiter would not tell you. But that is where research comes in. But if we are to present our own candidates, we work directly with hiring managers to make sure that we get the right budget and every of our candidates are paid fairly. So now down to organization is always have a transparent pay system. I'm currently consulting with the University of Minnesota Foundation, and I would say that they do have a very transparent pay system. And that is one thing I really like.
I really think I've learned a lot just chatting with you today, and I would love to keep chatting, but we will have to sort of wrap it up. But I want to give you the final word, Florence, based on what we've chatted about today. And there's way more that I know that we could talk about, but what's one thing you'd like our listeners to take away from our conversation today?
Okay, talking about diversity in promotion is never be afraid, even as a diverse candidate or a diverse employees, never be afraid to challenge status quo. Never be afraid to do so. That is one thing I want our listeners to know today is the moment you begin to challenge certain status quo in your organization, you'll be surprised at how the way they begin to view you will be different. Because managers always want someone that questions them, actually, because they see that has competency. But as an introvert, because we do have introvert and extrovert, not everyone can challenge authorities, or not everyone can be out there, outspoken. Not everyone can be outspoken. But one thing is, if organizations have a standard recognition system and a standard performance measuring KPIs, it will be very easy to do what? To be able to measure success, to be able to give out the right recognition to who deserves it. So as organization now, what they need to do is to be able to look inward, look at what they are lacking, look into their recognition system, look at their employment engagement, look at their affinity group. Affinity group in organizations are beginning to water down, which is not what it's supposed to be. Affinity group should be supposed to be an arm in an organization that will be able to stand against certain policies and processes that are against diverse candidates or diverse employees. So one organization needs to begin to look inward to say, what other ways can they do to incorporate this diversity strategies that they've been working on for ages, for the quite few years, which everyone has been clamoring for now, and look what is leaking, what ways they can just to fill up the gap. One thing is I do talk about is to give away now is look at the way we can maintain diversity. And it's just 3 ways. You track, you measure, and you adjust. There is no perfect plan. Both ways for organization and candidate, and employees, no perfect plan. All you have to do is you have to track, look at what you are, what do you want to achieve? You want a diverse candidate, you want to look top, bottom now. Look up, look down from top. Remember our ladder movements model. Look from the top, look bottom, and see what do you want to achieve. Then you track your goals, you measure your success, and of course there will always be adjustments to make.
That's a perfect summary. I really, really love that. Track, measure, adjust. That's amazing. Florence, for those who are interested in learning more about your work or are interested in keeping up with you, where can they go?
So you can always find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my home for now.
Okay.
And my name still remains the same, so it's Florence Idowu, and there is no much competition when it comes to Florence Idowu.
Perfect.
So you'll find me on LinkedIn. But I would also drop my LinkedIn link with Melissa, which she already has. So she would drop it, and you can always connect with me on LinkedIn, and of course through our website, which is bavardetalent.solutions.com. Send us a note, send us a message. We are always available every day.
Perfect. Florence, I can't thank you enough for being here and for just giving us a lot to think about. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. And as always, if you have any of your own questions or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Until next time, I'm Dr. Melissa Horne, and this is Just One Cue.